Hi, and welcome to this quick demonstration. Today, we will look at the integration between Automation Anywhere, which is one of the leading RPA solutions out there. RPA stands for Robotic Automation Process, and BeyondTrust. BeyondTrust as a privileged account management solution. And the role of BeyondTrust in this demonstration is to act as the external credential provider for Automation Anywhere. So Automation Anywhere requires access to privileged credentials to execute specific automations. It could be, that it requires some credentials to log into a system, to Active Directory, to a web service call. And the idea is to externalize these credentials in BeyondTrust instead of storing them in the Automation Anywhere database. So for this demonstration, I'm using the Community Edition, which is a managed option by Automation Anywhere. I did deploy a local client in my environment so I can interface with both Password Safe and DevOps Secret Safe. So I'm going to be demonstrating two different products from BeyondTrust acting as the external credential provider. So let's get started. First, I have a couple of bots here, which are basically processes. And the first one I'm going to be looking at is the one for Password Safe. And the idea is to provide reusable bots that our partners or customers can reuse instead of starting from a blank page and trying to figure out how to orchestrate the proper API calls. So we have a few API calls here. We have a first one here for the authentication. You can see that I'm using some variables here, API server. So we try to remove those static values that are customer specific or environment specific from those nodes and store them in variables. So you can see the different variables. And if you look at API server, you're going to see that it contains the value for the API server in my environment. Also, I need to be able to, access the API interface for Password Safe, which means, I need an API key that's associated with my account, and there could be additional controls like IP filters, certificates to make sure that the communication between Automation Anywhere and BeyondTrust is authenticated properly. And then, I'm after checking out a specific managed system, App01, and under it, a specific managed account called AA password. And, in this example bot or process, you can see the different calls. I do have some message boxes here, and there's one also at the end of the process, just before the logout web service call, that will display the password in clear text in a message bar. Of course, this is not a good idea. You wouldn't do that in production, but this is just to use this process, this bot, as a unit testing example, and then you'll be able to replace, those message boxes with, proper actions. Could be that we are interested in, manipulating AD objects. You can also look at, other type of integration. You could, basically interface with the database. You can also use generic calls like some of the calls I'm using here for REST or SOAP. So there are tons of different actions that you can orchestrate. Not all of them require privileged credentials, but when they do, this is an example on how you can, store them outside of Automation Anywhere into a corporate password management solution like Password Safe or DevOps Secret Safe that we will look after as a second example. So let's go through a run of this workflow quickly. So you're going to see first that it's going to be deploying the bot to my client machine in my environment. And, the first message basically shows us that, authentication was successful. And we're able to extract a session cookie from that authentication request that we will use in the other subsequent steps, the REST calls. So if I close this box, it's just going to move through the process, through the several REST call steps, and then I get my password here extracted fresh from password safe just in time. So that's the idea for this workflow or bot, and we're going to make these examples available to our customers and our partners so they can quickly get up to speed when they need to configure the integration. So now let's switch gears. Let's look at my second bot, the one for DevOps secret safe. And here again, same kind of ID, but the variables are a little bit different. There's a concept of application identity, and I do have an application here that's called Automation Anywhere that I define in DevOps secret safe. And I'm going to be using this application and the API key that's associated with this application to be able to interface with DevOps secret safe. And my API server here would contain the server name of my DevOps secret safe server, the one that's running the API interface. And there could be multiple ones because they could be set up in a Kubernetes cluster to provide fault tolerance and high availability. And now let's just go through a run. You're going to see that this one is a little bit simpler in terms of the number of calls. I don't need to worry about logging out, and you can see that again variables are used across this example to be able to remove any static information from the steps themselves. So let's take a run at it. Again, you're going to see that I'm deploying the bot to my local client. This is the output of the authentication, so I can see that it contains multiple things, an access token that I need to perform my second call. The authentication is giving me also other types of information. So I need to extract this. I use a string node to extract this value of access token. That's what we see in the second message box, which means my extraction process was successful. And then we move forward. We make the last call, and we extract a password, which is shown here in the text box. And again, this is just for unit testing purpose. You will remove that message box, of course, and replace it with appropriate actions. So that concludes our demonstration for the integration between two different BeyondTrust products, Password Safe and DevOps Secret Safe, versus Automation Anywhere, one of the leading RPA solution on the market today. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll have a very good day.